And the idea that Maury Terry goes on about German Shepherds being killed, I mean, just because we had German Shepherds, he then makes the assumption, oh, well, they must be the ones who are cutting the heads off German Shepherds. We loved our dogs. We fed our dogs better than we fed ourselves. I mean, the idea that anybody there would kill a dog is so absurd. Absolutely absurd.
Listening to Sick and Wrong. Yes, you're listening to Sick and Wrong.
The Sick and Wrong, the world source for antisocial commentary.
God, what a bunch of scumbags.
Good evening. Welcome to Sick and Wrong, the world source for antisocial commentary. I'm one of your hosts, Simon.
And I'm fellow cult leader, Kate Rambo.
What's cracking there, Kate Rambo?
Just leading my cult to the bitter end.
Leading
it's
the
hard
cult.
work, I tell you.
You got the
I tell you
charisma
what,
down.
it is more hassle than it is anything else. Just people coming to you with all their problems all the time. I just want their money for them to die. But it's just
That's the problem with the messianic complex. It's hard to maintain. It really is.
I tell you what, the end is nigh, D. The end is nigh.
So I was in San Francisco last weekend, hung out with my nephew Ozzy. My sister plays all this she's got all these toys. She's tons of toys for this kid, and a lot of people gave her all these toys. But it has most whacked out music. It's got little kids. There's this one toy that he has that looks like a keyboard, but you press a green button and this cheesy voice about I don't know. Some green eggs and blah, blah, blah. It's almost like green eggs and ham, but it's this stupid song. It kind of pissed me off. So I was just playing Danzig off my phone.
Obviously.
And I was thinking, I don't think it's necessarily a harmful thing to get a kid into Danzig earlier on, you know?
I think it's for the best.
I wish my parents would have done that.
For his long-term best, I think
I think so too.
Should be done. At childbirth, like Elvis, he should also be on a regular schedule now of listening to Elvis.
That's a good idea. I think I might do that. It was fun seeing the kid grew a lot. I saw him in March, and now he's double his size. Probably he smiles. He grabs shit.
Use a hot dog as a scale. How many hot dog lengths is he? 4 hot dogs?
Are you
in
saying
a bun?
a soy dog, like a not dog, or a regular hot dog?
Just a regular hot dog.
I don't know anything about regular hot dogs.
Would they fit in the palm of your hand?
No, I don't fucking know. He's 3 feet or something. He weighs
He's
probably...
not 3 feet tall.
I don't fucking know. 2 feet. He can't even stand up. He's got a little fat fuck. He's got cankles.
He's probably 3 hot dogs length, I would say. 2.
I don't know.
2.
Do you measure... Is that how you measure infants in England?
Everything.
Hot dogs?
I do everything by how long is the sausage.
Get a ruler. Wait, which sausage are you talking about?
I thought you were going to say get a room then. And I was like, with my hot dogs, gladly.
Wait, which sausage are you talking about?
Take your mind out the gutter. It's the hot dog.
I got to say one thing. So Stephanie and Big Jer obviously are obsessed with this kid, because it's their kid. But they're obsessed with particular aspects of this kid's life, like his shit, his feces. It's a thing. And I was like, that's all they talk about? They have a calendar marking down how long it's been since he's gone. 'Cause sometimes he won't go for 4 days. And when he does go, it's like a celebration. It's like fucking Mardi Gras because the kid just shit. And then she will ask Jared to come over and take a look at it and be like, what do you think? And I'm like, I don't know. Do you want to know?
Who would appreciate this? She should send these pictures to Steele from the Ville. They used to have an entire photo section of just Steele's shits.
I don't know if
the
Steele
baby
would
could be comparing.
Baby shit. It's not even a log. It's paste.
But he could compare and then tell them what to feed the baby to start producing real logs. Also good for his future.
Don't you think it'd be a little, I don't know, kind of creepy if Steele's looking at baby's diapers? He's got tons of pictures of baby diapers, used baby diapers on his phone. He's a single man,
Well, is it not creepy what they're doing? They're writing down when their baby takes a shit. That's a bit creepy, isn't it?
They have a shit. They have a shit
diary. They're keeping
diary.
a log of the logs.
They have a log of logs. Yeah. I was like, this isn't normal. She's like, no, it's actually very normal. All parents do this. And
No.
I
Do
don't
they?
know. I think that baby's going to be like, this is weird. I think they're going to be watching him when he takes his first shit in like a toilet. And it's going to be a thing that they do together as a family.
As a family.
As a family.
The
Yeah,
family
it's-
that shits together stays together.
Yeah, it's the glue that holds that family together. I don't know. I'm not taking any part of it, but I was like, it's fucking gross. And I don't think you should get this excited over a baby's shit.
There's
really
basically
don't.
nobody watching now because all we're talking about is people shitting.
I'm not surprised. Unfortunately,
I'm with them.
I didn't get to see my brother. My brother got the COVID. Jeffrey.
I think he will be fine with the COVID. I certainly think he's probably felt worse because of other
Well,
things.
that's kind of what I was wondering. Like with all the diseases that my brother has, or is it like the viruses he's come in contact with on a daily basis? You know, I'm wondering where the Rona like stands in terms of like being lethal. Like, is it as
Yeah, like
bad as
what-
the other ones that he has?
How does it compare to the worst come down he's ever had? That's
Yeah,
what
or
I'd
like the
to know.
super gonorrhea. Does that kill the corona? I don't know how it works. Like,
Balances it out, maybe. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd like to know too.
but he looked like utter shit. Like I went over there to give him some chicken soup and some sugar-free Gatorade. But he's vaccinated, so it kind of lessened the severity. I think with my brother's health and the state of his like diabetes, weight, whatever, been smoking since he's been 12. I think if he got the Rona, like initially without being vaccinated, I don't know if he would have been able to survive it. But with the vaccine, I mean, it's sure. He says his back hurts, he feels tired, but I mean, he was only down for a few days, so it wasn't as bad. So I'm not sure. And he probably got. I've also heard that the Delta is more contagious, but not as like severe, like less of a severity.
I really think it depends because the Delta has definitely been fucking a lot of people I know in the ass.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes you sick, but it's also, I think it depends if you're vaxxed or not. You know what's weird about San Francisco, though? And they're starting to do it in LA. I don't know if they're doing it over in the UK, but so bars are open and you don't have to wear a face diaper. You don't. You don't have to wear a face mask, but you have to have a vax card to get into a bar.
Oh, your hot vax card. Yours is laminated, right?
I was carrying my laminated vax card.
Wipe clean.
Well, mainly, so I can prove to the sluts that they might catch syphilis from me, but not Rona, But Joe Joe Kelly had a picture of it on his phone, and then they're like, oh, that's fine. So you could just show the picture of the phone. You know how like low res that is? No, I'm thinking about it. I was like, I could take a picture of this, go into Photoshop 2 seconds, put Kate Rambo on it, and remove my name. You just put it on your phone, and there you go. Now you got a vax card.
Yeah, it is ridiculous.
No, I'm
It'll
thinking
all
of doing
work
this. I'm
itself
thinking of
out.
like peddling fake vax cards.
I'm sure there's already the market. I'm sure the black market is probably filled with them by now. I think if you'd have done that maybe 3 months ago, you could have hustled some money. You could have grifted some money there. But I think you've always got to get in early on the grifts, right? This is what I've learned.
That is true.
When
That's
you're
true.
grifting, when you're trying to con people, you got to be there in like your foot in the door. If you've left it too late now, man, you can't grift money out of anyone.
The ship might have sailed, but I don't know. I was thinking of just like peddling fake vax cards. I bet you that would work in like Eastern Europe. You could probably get one like at the airport.
Why do you think it would work there? Are you
don't
being
know.
racist against some of my favorite people on this planet? Because I will not stand for it.
I've seen a Serbian film. I know what goes on there. All right, that's what I'm saying. I think that's like a fake vax card is like the least of your concerns.
Their worries, yeah.
Anyway, Kay Rambo.
Yes.
I do realize that you are aware of this, but I'm just going to restate it for the purpose of the show. It's the anniversary of the Tate murders.
It is?
Yep. They occurred August
the
8th
9th.
and 9th, 1969 at 10050 Cielo Drive 52 years ago.
It's a long time.
Today, yeah, Sharon Tate. And
if Sharon Tate had still lived to be this age 52 years later, she would still be hot. She'd be in
I
her
was
70s.
about to say, I bet you
But,
she'd still be hot.
She'd still be banging, man. She was banging back then.
Yeah, she was very fit. I could see that. I don't know about there were like 4 other people too, right? Didn't you have some
There's
guests?
Stephen Perrin, Abigail Folger, Wojtek Frykowski. I think I'm saying his last name wrong. And then Sharon Tate.
So it's and the anniversary of the tape.
Oh, and Jay Sebring, obviously.
Oh, yeah,
Sorry,
of course.
Jay.
Yeah, how could you forget Jay Sebring?
Yeah.
So this month we're doing Manson Month on Overkill. It's going to be every episode's associated with Manson, not necessarily about Charlie.
Well, I always say this. I've definitely said this on the show before. I actually think Charles Manson is the most boring out of all the Manson family because he's just institutionalized. It's all the people who he managed to like con and bring into like his schemes.
What about
that I'm
Tex?
much more interested in. Tex Watson, he's a wanker because anyone who goes to jail and becomes a born again Christian is an instant wanker. But Tex was just like a weird like runaway college kid. He's not who I'm mega into in the family. There won't be an overkill about Tex Watson.
I do like the name Tex, though.
Well, he's a
Tex.
Charles Tex Watson because he's from Texas.
It's kind of a cool name. So the topic for today's show is something that, Harrison and I wanted to do this like years ago.
This is a Harrison topic.
Well, a lot of the topics that we waited on was because like, I got to get the book first, and that just never happens. So it's like we just kind of
it is
backlogged.
difficult.
Well, because there are several books on this particular topic. Also, a recent documentary called "Sympathy for the Devil," which is really good. But we're going to talk about the Process Church of the Final Judgment, aka the Process. They're accused of being like a black-caped, black-garbed, death-worshipping church.
Awesome.
They were an apocalyptic cult.
Awesome.
Borrowed heavily from the Church of Scientology.
Not awesome.
Yeah, stole a lot of their tools and techniques. And then people claim that they're a pretty major influence to none other than Charlie Manson.
Dun, dun, dun.
Who borrowed a few of their philosophies to start his own cult. Not to mention other celebrities were affiliated or involved with the process. And like Marianne Faithfull, for example, was on one of the covers of their magazines. Mick Jagger, but yeah, they actually lived for a while. The process had a location in San Francisco that was right down the street from good old Charlie. But what a weird cult the process was. I've been reading about them all week. A strange religious movement. And it's at that time in the late 60s, 70s where, the society was rife with all these like new age thinking groups and occultism and all these different like Scientology was kind of a burgeoning, religion at that time. And so a lot of people are getting swept up with these like new age philosophies and, joining cults. And things like that. And I can kind of see why the Process Church came to fruition and survived as long as they did. But what a bizarre cult. I mean, Scientology, weird. It is weird. Scientology's weird with Xenu and the aliens and all this. But the Process Church, I think they were like already kind of into Scientology, and they're like, let's just make it a little weirder, all right? Let's add like God, Lucifer, Satan. Let's just do it. Let's just do it all.
Let's kick it up a notch, guys. Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's a strange one. So let's get into it here. All dates back to 1963. Robert de Grimston Moore and his eventual wife, Marianne McLean, met at a Dianetics, there they are, auditing session at the L.L. Ron Hubbard Institute of Scientology on Fitzroy Street in London. When did the UK deem Scientology a cult? Was that like in the past 20 years? Or is that like even like the 70s?
I suppose, yeah, because it is, it's not practiced here like the way it is in America, is it? No, I think the cult thing came recently.
Oh, so it's a recent thing. I mean, is it banned?
I'm not sure if it's banned. Well, I think they're banned from having buildings and premises. But I don't necessarily think you're banned from. Is it worship? Like, do you worship the Scientology? I don't know.
Yeah, no. I mean, they like in the States, it's considered an actual religion. Like they are excluded from paying property tax on the sundry properties they have all over LA that are worth, I don't know, millions and millions of dollars.
Can I just say that this is a handsome couple. They're both attractive. He's kind of got a Christopher Walken vibe, and she's just like a full-on 60s like love witch babe.
Yeah, check out the second picture of him too. He looks like very 70s, very dashing, like a leading man, like a Rucker Hauer type.
He could totally be on like one of those like Dennis Wheatley cult like novels. I would buy it.
And she's very beautiful too. I mean, they're very a fetching couple. Hard to find pictures of her. I couldn't really find too many pictures of Marianne McLean. So they both met at a Dianetics auditing session. They're studying to be auditors, quote unquote. And based on the earlier system of Dianetics, auditing was Hubbard's method of discovering and eliminating engrams, which is the psychic residue from past traumas. People were so like hopped up on goofballs and marijuana at that time that this all made sense. Like
Well,
like, yeah, this
apparently it
makes sense.
still does to Tom
In
Cruise.
Los Angeles, yeah. The aim of auditing was to become clear, to wipe the psychic slate clean. And so they were studying to become auditors. So Robert Moore and Marianne McLean were fascinated by auditing, and they became proficient. They were, scholars of Scientology. Both were very enthusiastic about it. Robert was born in Shanghai in 1935. He served in the military as a cavalry officer. Relatively middle-class upbringing, studied to be an architect. Smart guy, IQ of 163, and was a member of Mensa. Yeah, tall, handsome, dreamy. But he was passive.
Getting a little wet right here for him.
Passive and emotionally dependent, which is a bit of a perfect match here for Marianne. So Marianne, on the other hand, born in Glasgow, 1931, she had an interesting life, interesting upbringing. Her father left before she was born, and her mother abandoned her. She was raised by relatives in poverty and neglect, attractive, very attractive, driven and ambitious. By the early 50s, she moved to the States, and the rumor has it, once again, it's hard to find a lot of information about her. She paid her way through college and just life in general as a prostitute. And for a time, this is pretty interesting too, she was actually married to boxing champion Sugar Ray Robinson in the early 1960s. Yeah. In the early 1960s, Marianne actually, she was married to him. It was a brief, I don't know, like a couple year marriage. But in the 1960s, she left Sugar Ray and then moved back to London, to the UK. And the split definitely worked out for her because she got a lease on an expensive flat, set up a high-class call girl service in London. So she became a madam there.
I love her.
Yeah, she's kind of amazing, actually. And we'll get to that. We'll get to her role in the Process Church a little bit later. But she had some, top-tier customers and connections with the Profumo scandal. I don't know if you remember that. But
I do.
She was demanding, manipulative, volatile. She had like severe mood swings. She knew how to exploit emotional needs. She had every characteristic of a successful cult leader. And she would foster dependence in those around her, including Robert. Robert's an intelligent guy, a good-looking guy, but I think he was easily manipulated.
I think so. I think you said before he was like emotionally needy, and she just sounds like the perfect woman to boss him around. He needs a good, strong Scottish woman to tell him what to do. They wear the pants.
Definitely. I think we know who the brains behind this operation was. So it became apparent to Marianne and Robert that they were too intelligent and willful to remain in the Church of Scientology and follow Hubbard and Hubbard's teachings. And they had ideas of their own that they started testing on their own clients. However, security at the Church of Scientology here on Fitzroy was high, and they had actually bugged session rooms and found out that Robert and Marianne were up to their own little operation here. So L. Ron Hubbard kicked them out. They booted him from the church, and
by the man himself.
Well, the leadership of the London branch, but I'm sure L. Ron was. These were some of his top students.
Yeah, I'm gonna imagine it was him because that's way cooler to say that he got kicked out of the church by L. Ron.
When they left the church, Marianne said, "You know what? I think it's time, Robert, for you to drop more and just be Robert de Grimston, because I think it sounds a little darker, a little more occult." She thought Moore was a bit too common. And so his surname officially now is Dick Grimston. And they married in 1964, and they set up their own system, which is a bit of a combination of the teachings of L. Ron Hubbard and Freudian psychologist Alfred Adler. Now, Adler had developed the idea of the inferiority complex, and he believed that people were driven by what he called secret goals, hidden agendas, that gave rise to like compulsions and neuroses. So the idea was to discover these goals and bring them to the conscious level. So by putting Adler and Hubbard together, because Hubbard's like, clean your psychological residue, this guy was like, find out what makes you inferior, bring it to the forefront, and learn to control it. They created a new system that they called compulsions analysis. I mean, at that time, you seriously could just like look up Carl Jung and be like, I'm going to do the same thing and just name it something catchy. You know?
It already sounds like something that could be around now, to be fair, that people would fall prey to now.
Well, I mean, look at the Church of Scientology. What was interesting is they modeled it on auditing, and they made use of the e-meter, which is what Scientologists still use today, the polygraph-like device that they employ during their auditing sessions. Actually, because they used the e-meter and the Scientologists found out about it, they declared de Grimston and McLean suppressive persons, toxic personalities to be avoided by Hubbard himself. So they had already been kicked out, but now they were suppressive.
Well, nowadays, they'd be disappeared.
Kind of. I think they're conniving, the Scientologists. They have ways to do this, and they call you an SP. Like what was that? What was that celebrity who was on did a reality show, and she was blanking on her name right now. Reality show about Scientology, and she kind of exposed a lot of their secrets, and they called her an SP.
I imagine Louis Theroux, when he did his documentary, was also an SP. I'm sure he was too.
So they started just practicing their own system now, and the circle grew. So initially it had been people who had, they met through Scientology, and they started calling it the process, like what they were doing. This whole compulsion analysis became the process. And people paid considerable fees to the de Grimstons for this treatment, quote unquote, treatment. Most of our early clients came from Robert's set. Marianne's friends tended to be a bit shadier than Robert's. I think, Robert had the English youth, young professionals, architects, artists, scientists. That was the core of the following at first. But you want younger, impressionable people who are more receptive, to new ideas. So the group now is about 30 people, and they began to feel the group mind effects of this system. It's kind of like the genesis of the cult.
The madness of the many.
So compulsions analysis moved from self-help to more of a spiritual quest. So the people who had gone through the entire process, the holistic process, now began to regard the rest of society as a bad dream. Like they moved beyond that. Like they're elevated. Their consciousness is elevated. So the de Grimstons started feeling like what they created was more than a therapy. It was a movement, kind of like Scientology. And so de Grimston was known as the teacher, McLean, the oracle.
Oh, I want to be known as the Oracle. These are like Marvel characters, aren't they? This is great.
Well, they even had like symbols, and we'll show pictures of that later. But the members were called processions. And so the aim was to improve themselves with a view to escape, the imminent world judgment, because you're beyond world judgment. And at this point, I mean, they were full-on messianic complex on both, Robert and Marianne's side. They felt inspired. They felt divine powers were guiding them to do this. And so when one of their members, one of the 30, came into an inheritance, they convinced him to take out a lease on a mansion in Balfour Place in Mayfair.
Oh, very swish.
Is Mayfair pretty upscale?
Oh, yes. Yeah. It's full of mansions, darling. Only the elite live in Mayfair.
So they donated, this member donated it to the process. And they convinced him to decorate the place lavishly. And they started now at this point referring from compulsions analysis to more the process is what they used. It wasn't official, but they called it the process. And so he decorated the place lavishly, put a brass plate on the door. Came up there. Yeah, there it is. Came up with a new process symbol that Robert had designed. And you can kind of see it over there on the left. It's like 4 P's. It's sort of like a mandalic wheel, kind of, in a sense.
Yeah, it looks a bit like something else.
I was about to say,
David?
doesn't it have like an uncanny resemblance to another symbol that we know?
I wonder.
So it's a swastika-like symbol they called the P sign. That was the insignia, yeah.
Oh,
So
for process. Okay. Oh,
for
I
process.
see. Yeah, because it is a P.
It's
see
4
it now.
P's.
It is not a swastika in any way whatsoever. It's a P. I see it.
So yeah, check out there it is. There's the sticker. A lot of people wore this patch, and they also had like jewelry too that they wore as well.
Why do they have to do it in the same colors as the swastika? Just putting it out there. Like, come on, guys. At least change the colors. Maybe invert the colors a little. It's very eye-catching, but everyone's gonna know.
The symbol
what you
here
mean.
had 4 superimposed P letters. It was also seen as representing the trumpets of the 4 great gods. They also used a second symbol called the sign of the union, which featured the letter alpha inside the letter omega, representing the intercourse of male Lucifer and female Jehovah. I'll show you that on some of their outfits. But yeah, here's the process, Church of the Final Judgment.
That is not an iron cross at all, in any way whatsoever. Do I not look at that and think, hey, that's an iron cross?
I know, it is really funny how they use these like evocative. I'm sure, that was definitely intended. So now, in the early years, the members of the church here, of the process church of the final judgment, would dress in black capes and turtlenecks, and they wore silver crosses and then that insignia there, and badges portraying the goat of Mendes. Now, the goat of Mendes is another way of saying Baphomet. The Baphomet symbol.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, so there's this is interesting. Here's a bunch of the jewelry, which I wonder if you can even find this in this day and age.
The dragon cross, I want that, and I do want the iron cross ring.
The
wear
iron
both of
cross
them.
looks like a shuriken, like a ninja star.
Oh, it does a bit.
So the goat of Mendes, was the Baphomet. The name Baphomet has been associated with the sabbatic goat image, which was drawn by Eliphas Levi. This is like in around 1856, and it contains binary elements. I don't think I have a picture of it, but everyone knows what the goat symbol of Satan represents the symbolization of the equilibrium of opposites, half human, half animal, male and female, good and evil. And so the goat of Mendes, which I think that's what Levi initially called it, was probably following the Greek account of the god of Mendes, which was the Greek name for Jedet, Egypt, which was depicted with a goat's face and legs. And so Herodotus relates how all male goats were held in great reverence by the Mendesians. And so at this time, women would publicly copulate with the goat. Like, that was the ceremony. Everyone would be like, she's going to have sex with the goat.
Well, they didn't have telly back then. They didn't have radio. They didn't have the internet. I mean, what are you going to do for fun? Come on.
I got to say, it sounds better than Love Island, if you ask me.
Yeah, 100% would rather watch that too.
So at several places in this area of the Delta in Egypt here, the god Pan and a goat were worshipped. Goats had intercourse with women. Herodotus said there's a case where it would take place in the open of the town market, where everyone would gather around and cheer as the goat was stupping her. The link between Baphomet and the pagan god Pan actually was also observed by Crowley and Anton LaVey, who said many pleasures revered before the advent of Christianity were condemned by the new religion, by Christianity. It required little changeover to transform the horns and cloven hooves of Pan into a most convincing devil, like the satanic Baphomet. Pan's attributes could neatly be changed into charged with punishment sins, and so the metamorphosis is complete. So they took this symbol that was, innocent and worshipped and revered, and made it into something evil, now associated with evil.
Well, that's what the Christians like to do, isn't it? Like to ruin all the good and fun times, make it all serious.
So at this point, the processions and the process and the church, the process church of the final judgment, was in full effect. Like, it was about 30 members in 1966. And Robert and Marianne thought, we got to get out of the UK. Got to get out of London. they were disgusted by society. And they
Disgusted.
felt, they were. And they felt like we need to find a sanctuary, a home for our new religion. So they left and they went to Nassau, the Bahamas. They were accompanied by 6 Alsatian dogs. They always had Alsatian dogs.
I love this couple. I
Yeah,
want to
they
grow
always
up to
did.
be them.
A lot of the Alsatians were black Alsatian dogs, which is one of my favorite breeds of dog. Well, yeah,
That's
amazing
my
animals.
dream dog. I'm gonna get one. Maybe I'm gonna name it after the process.
Yeah, they also said there are other things that they had acquired from members were an $80,000 yacht, first-class cruise to Turkey and Asia. So there were fringe benefits from, leading the cult here. But yeah, members, to be more like their leaders, would also acquire Alsatians. So it was like this cult where everyone had Alsatians. Yeah.
I love it. It's like a dog club, but you're all, worshipping Satan in your spare time. I'm down for this. Sign me up.
Remember their reverence for animals, Alsatians in particular, because it'll come full circle a little bit later. So they went to Nassau. They were there for about 3 months. Didn't really work out. Wasn't the place that they had imagined, that they had visualized. So
You know why? It's too hot.
Yeah, but that could have been. Maybe it was the water pigs. They have pigs that swim in water.
That's adorable, but it's too hot there.
Wild pigs swimming in water. I don't know. It freaked me out.
I think all pigs can swim, can they not?
Yeah, but these pigs do it on purpose. They're just like cruising around in herds swimming. Haven't you ever seen that?
I have seen that, and it's adorable. I'm for that, but I'm not for the blazing hot sun every day, especially when you're trying to wear a cloak, you're wearing a lot of heavy jewelry. It can't be done.
Well, I don't know if that was their concern, because then they next went to Mexico City, which is also pretty fucking hot. So they went to Mexico City, and while they were there, they're like, someone suggested just hire a bus and go down the Yucatan coast. You'll find a perfect place. And so near Seasol, Mexico, central Mexico, they found Stuhl, which is, Stuhl, which my sister and Jer seem to find frequently, and they celebrate it.
They're in the cult of Stuhl.
It's XTUL. It's a place of ruins. It's near the beach, and it actually means terminus or the end in Mayan. But for the process, this is the start of everything. So Robert thought it was paradise. So did Marianne. They lived on fruit, fish, swimming, making love, having group sexual encounters, orgies. This is like the dream, the wet dream of any, person who's trying to like find themselves in the 60s, like of self-discovery in the 60s. It's like, I'm living in paradise, living in a veritable Eden, Garden of Eden, having orgies, hanging out. Sure, I'm wearing the black cloak with a little swastika-like symbol, but that's cool. Having orgies.
Yeah, I can take it off.
Got my Alsatians.
It's all fun times here, people.
It had a profound effect on Robert, and he started beginning to identify with Jesus Christ. Felt he had powers like Jesus Christ. Well, I mean, it's pretty common for most cult leaders. But then disaster hit. A hurricane pummeled the entire area for 3 days, like 200-mile-per-hour winds, flattened all the shelters. No one was injured from it severely. Like no one died or anything. But it was a rite of passage for de Grimston. He saw the true nature of the universe. They had met the twin gods of love and violence, like right in front of him. He saw this. So now he saw how God, nature, combined love and violence, which he took to mean as a symbol to represent God, Satan, Lucifer. So Satan, there's one side of Satan, there's also Lucifer, the bringer of light, Satan, evil. But it was like Satan, Lucifer, and God became one. And then he kind of had this, like, I would almost say he probably wasn't on a lot of psychedelics, being that everybody was. So he had this out-of-body experience where he contacted 3 entities, Jehovah, Lucifer, and Satan, the 3 great gods of the universe. Very similar to Moses and a certain burning bush. He saw a burning bush that was speaking to him. Well, de Grimston here.
I'd much rather speak to Lucifer than a burning bush.
He had God, Lucifer, and Satan, the great gods of the universe.
Yeah, I want Satan and Lucifer. God can fuck off. Gonna have some fun times. Lucifer.
This was the foundation of his procession theology. Now he wanted. There it is: Lucifer, Jehovah, Satan, the game of gods. 3 paths. Which path do you follow? And this is basically the foundation of the entire theology. He claims that there's 4 forms of deity: Jehovah, Lucifer, Christ, and Satan. And members are asked to identify with one of their God patterns. Like, you have to look inside yourself and find out what God pattern. Are you Jehovah Christian? Are you Jehovah Satanic? Are you Luciferian Christian? Or are you Luciferian Satanic? So he kind of subverted the Judeo-Christian archetypes here. And
Right.
which, I mean, is fairly common. Like, you look at like any cult leader, takes these existing archetypes. I mean, Christianity kind of did it. They borrowed from like the Old Testament, borrowed from Islam.
Charles Manson did it. He was
Babylonians. Yeah, I mean,
Satan and Jesus.
Exactly. I think they put their own spin, developed their own Gnostic philosophy. And that's what he did with the Protestant church. He said, the 3 great gods represent universal forces, but spiritual currents in the human soul. Jehovah, God of discipline and righteousness, also God of war. Think of holy wars. Lucifer, God of love and light, and a sensualist. So sex is under his purview, the ultimate act of love and life. Self-indulgence, sensuality. Satan, God of darkness, magic, and transcendence.
Nice.
Satanic violence, lust, and disorder. And then there's Christ, the emissary to the other gods, transcendental love. He's believed to come a second time to the end of times. So you found something. Did you have a quote about enmity that you found in which book is this?
Let me find the quote first.
So there's the 4 God patterns.
Yeah, this is a book from Jack Sargent, who's a great author. I've got a lot of his book, and it's called Death Cults. And so this is enmity, which I can never say. So forgive me. Forgive me, Satan. Christ said, love thine enemy. Christ's enemy was Satan, and Satan's enemy was Christ. Through love, enmity is destroyed. Through love, Christ and Satan have destroyed their enmity and come together for the end. Christ to judge, Satan to execute judgment.
And that kind of plays into effect with Roberts, de Grimson's philosophy here, because ultimately the Protestant church was an apocalyptic religion. So everybody who wasn't in the process, who wasn't a member, who didn't identify with one of these, key God patterns, were called grays. So that was everyone else who was characterized by compromise, conformity, mediocrity. De Grimson said, John Gray hides from himself, his own intensity of feeling. He's wrapped himself in a cocoon of compromise and mediocrity. People like him will burn in the purging fires of the last days.
Manson 100% stole that.
Oh,
Anyone
for
who
sure.
didn't get into his pit, you're all dead.
Well,
the family living in the pit.
The similarities between the two are kind of just uncanny. It really is. You'll see in a bit. So the goal of the Protestant church was to wake up humanity, to get everybody to wake them up before the apocalypse came to pass, because the majority of humankind.
To wake them up inside, to wake them up inside and to save them.
Exactly, because the majority of humankind was lost. They're gray. They're in a day-to-day doldrums of daily existence, in their cocoon of compromise and conformity. But what they want to do is they want to wake people up. So here's Balfour Place. So they left Mexico, went back to London, went back to Balfour Place. This is the mansion that they owned, and this kind of became the focal point of the process. And so when they went back to Balfour Place, this would have been like around 67 maybe, they opened a 24-hour macabre-styled coffee shop called Satan's Cavern. How cool is that?
I would have been at this place all the time.
In London.
All the time.
Oh, a lot of cool people were hanging out there. I'll get to that in a minute. But it became the focal point for public events. These events included performances, debates, film screenings, and more. What a former Process member in the documentary Sympathy for the Devil that just recently came out was talking about Process events, and he said, yeah, I mean, there were rituals, there were Sabbath assemblies, a black mass, which kind of shocked the audience. He called it like a cruel piece of religious satire at the time. However, they kind of said the way they described it was Dada meets Aleister Crowley, which just sounds amazing, doesn't it?
Yes, I want to be there right now.
So
instead of
this
doing
is
podcast.
Yeah, this is when the group really started becoming, I'd say, a full-on cult. And as you can see in this picture, Robert's wearing the Omega symbol because he was an Omega. He was the leader. And everybody's just kind of like his devotees are sitting around cross-legged just worshiping him, which is obviously feeding his ego. But the group made a
Iron
shift.
cross. Have you seen the coffee table?
Oh,
It's
yeah,
got
there it is.
The P iron cross. I want that in my house.
Members dressed in black and purple hooded cloaks, emblazoned with the Go to Mendy's patch or pendants of their peace sign swastika around their neck. Their holy day was Saturday when they held their Sabbath assembly. Sunday was a day of rest. At the Sabbath assembly, there was an altar situated in the center with 4 candles making out the 4 compass directions, and members sat around it on cushions in concentric circles. Similar here you can kind of see it. There's the 4P peace sign, and then there's candles around it. Everybody's kind of sitting in a circle, and there's Robert blessing each person as a part of the Sabbath assembly. But what was strange about it is, they held similar rituals to Christian practices. They had baptisms, marriages, weekly gatherings. Yeah. And baptisms were performed at different elevations of status in the hierarchy of the church. They sang hymns to the 4 deities during these assemblies. Women as well as men were allowed to be ordained priests. On one wall was a picture of Christ, another the goat of Mendes. Later, they eventually removed the goat. Here's 2 classic occultists. One's an Omega, one's a regular procession. But they're wearing the cloaks, the black cloaks. You can see the cross with the serpent on it. But the table's amazing. I wonder where all this stuff is, if you can even find this anymore.
Do you know what? So these people are all kind of like my parents' age. And this is just shortly before my parents moved to London as well. So like all of these people are probably all like mums and dads somewhere, and they just won't tell their kids what the crazy things I got up to.
Could you imagine finding these pictures like in your parents' closet? I'd be like, what the fuck were you guys on back then?
I'd be like, where was this table and where can we get it? I want this table.
Whatever. It's like I look at some of the the weird Jewish rituals and things like that we do. It's not all that far from this. They set up a lecture hall and a bookshop. There was an alpha room where they held their Sabbath assemblies, movie theater. They would go out to Hyde Park to preach the apocalypse. Processions would hit the streets asking for donations. They would go around with their cups out trying to sell their magazines. And this picture is interesting. You have a guy in the middle. He's got probably the purple cape. It's a black and white picture. But sitting next to him is an Omega, who's like a leader. And I think that you eventually kind of would aspire to attain the ranks, elevate through the ranks of, much like Scientology, same thing. There's like the different levels depending on how much you donate to the church. I'm sure this was based on the same hierarchical structure, Mary Ann was a fanatical anti-vivisectionist. She loved animals.
Good. Same. Good on you, Marianne.
Cult members were told to say that the money for their donations is going to animal welfare, though a majority of it landed in the de Grimson's pockets. Along with, he wrote many works, Robert. He was very prolific at the time. Definitely believed in this philosophy of his, was balls deep in it. He wrote a book called The Gods and War, Humanity is the Devil, and another book called As It Is, which kind of became the catchphrase of the cult. As it is, so be it. That was the, I think there's a picture of him with the As It Is, so be it. It's number 11.
That's very Church of Satan because what is it? Up above, so below.
Yeah, it's simple. You got to have something catchy. There's Robert with "As It Is, so be it."
He's got a bit of the Vincent Gallo about him too. He's like if Vincent Gallo and like Christopher Walken had a son.
I kind of see that. They would go around in their purple and black capes. They started a magazine called the Process Magazine. The editorial policy favored Hitler, Satan, and gore. They were really into the Nazi chic, obviously, if you look at their symbolism.
Well, they're war babies as well.
Yeah.
All these people.
The theme was humanity is doomed. The tide of the end has come. Earth is preparing for the ultimate devastation. The scene is set, so you can come now to join the church and be saved. In picture 12, the next one is great because it shows the people with the capes just kind of randomly coming up and talking to people. They do that. Scientologists do that here.
Oh, do they? Do they just randomly come up and try and get you to go for a free chicken dinner?
No, what they do, they want to try to get you to sign up and get your information and get your books. It's really funny. Like, I noticed this in Hollywood, and I've seen it in Glendale. A really attractive girl, or sometimes two girls, they'll be like standing there, and you don't really, it's kind of nondescript. They don't have like the Church of Scientology logos and insignias. It's just they're sitting there with books, and they'll come up and be like, "Hi, how are you?" And you start chatting with them, like, "Wow, this girl's hot." And you start chatting with them, and then within 5 minutes, you realize, "Oh, wait a second. Wait a second." No. Next thing you know, they're trying to shill their Dianetics books. I imagine this is something similar. It's like you got these weirdos in their black capes cruising around, and they come up to like, "Hey, do you want to expand your mind? Do you want to help animals?" And then they start talking about it. It's like, the humanity's doomed. World's going to end. Join our cult. We have orgies. We have cool capes. We have Alsatians, and you'll be saved.
What's not to love?
Exactly.
I also must say that these guys are 100 times cooler than any Scientologist has ever looked.
No, for sure. I love the capes. So they hawked the Process magazines. Show the next picture. This is great. This is the so they became quite prolific with this. There he is. Yeah, there's Mick Jagger, Marianne Faithfull. So they started selling these Process magazines. I was actually looking for some of these.
I was about to say, I really want to get on eBay right now and look for some. Did you find any?
I couldn't find any. Yeah, you might be able to find them in the UK, though, I bet. I didn't even think about that. But they hawked these magazines on the streets of cool. I mean, this was like when King's Road was cool, late 60s. They would go into the Indica bookshop run by Peter Asher, brother of Paul McCartney's girlfriend, Jane Asher.
Cool.
Yeah, Pop Chanteuse, Marianne Faithfull appeared on one of the covers of their magazine. I don't know which issue that is, but she later backed away.
On the left?
She later backed away from it, saying that there was something almost like fascism about the Process. Oh, really,
Ooh.
Marianne? That's quite insightful of you. Look at their logo. The next picture is a close-up of the cover. But, this is my favorite one. So here's a picture of their sex magazine. You see Lucifer, Jehovah, Satan. And their first story, The Natural Life of Jimmy Savile. I wonder if he was a member.
Oh, my God. So this is a quote. The question is, are you moral? And this is Jimmy Savile saying, I would say that I am highly moral during the day and even highly moral during the evening. But of course, we won't say anything about nighttime because that is when all real wolves like myself rise from the darkness and leap about causing mayhem left and right.
Yeah.
With hindsight. Wow. What a quote to find.
There was the fear issue. Paul McCartney was interviewed, and he said that he had no fear of the world ending or anything like that, but did fear itself.
Okay,
whatever the fuck that means.
Maca.
You go to the next pic here. This shows Mick Jagger. Oh yeah, this is the Marianne Faithfull cover.
Yeah,
it's a pretty cool picture. Freedom of expression issue. But the next one here, Mind Bending, had Mick Jagger on the cover. Because I think the Process editors were like, "Oh, Mick's face is going to sell more issues than putting Satan or the goat's head on it."
He will have been sticking Mars bars into Marianne Faithfull at this time, so they probably both just said, "Oh, it's very cool, darling. Use my picture."
Well, I think that's part of it. I think it was like really hip at this point. Like you had celebrity endorsements, you had these magazines. They're the Balfour Place mansion. They had their movie screenings. It definitely sounded like something. I mean, to be honest, I probably would have checked that out. It sounded kind of cool. But as soon as they start coming out with the dogma and the teachings and the self-help stuff, I'd be like, yeah,
I'm leaving.
You know what I think the first thing is for me? It's like as soon as they start asking for money, I'm just like, you do know I'm Jewish here.
Well, yeah, I'm tight. I'd be like, I'm out. Can I play with your dogs though? Bye.
So as they were, growing in popularity, the De Grimsons withdrew from the outer world. They started occupying a zone of secrecy and exclusion, penetrated only by the oldest members. So they started calling themselves the Omega. So the Omega were the elite within the process. Everybody else were processions. And they'd fuse into a single psychic entity. So Robert, there it is. There's a difference. An omega is on the left with that like kind of, I don't know what's that symbol.
It's a smock.
The omega symbol.
Oh,
yeah, and
that
then
they're
the other
wearing
person's a
on
procession.
the smocks.
And in the background, the go-to-Mendes. But yeah, so Robert started having his long hair, his beard made him start looking like Christ. He would still show up at lectures where he would, preach and give sermons and things like that. But Marianne rarely seen by any lower-ranking members.
Oh, mysterious.
Yeah. The hierarchical structure of like processions and neophytes and priests and brothers strictly enforced. And the secret rituals of the Omega were a matter of speculation among new devotees. No one would you'd never even any interaction with an Omega. And so for people who are new to the process, to even encounter Marianne was a bit of a devastating experience. It was shocking. Because she was kind of totalitarian. Like, she ran everything with an iron fist. She imposed a strict sexual abstinence on any new member. Although the Omegas, they could do whatever they wanted, Robert was advised to release the fiend that lies within you, he would say to the young neophytes. And people claim that also included bestiality. I don't know, maybe.
No, I think if she's such an animal lover, I think bestiality is the total opposite.
Well, I think with Marianne, but I don't know about Robert.
I don't know. I'm all for releasing the fiend, though. I'm all down for that.
That's your motto. The communal life of the church members is strictly regulated. Sex and the use of drugs and alcohol, with the exception of caffeine and nicotine, is strictly rationed. These practices were a distraction from their spiritual work. Unlike other satanic groups that were active during the period, because if you think about it, they are pretty connected to Satanism, and the Church of Satan that was going on at that time you'd think would be similar. But they didn't practice magic. They were very opposed to magic. They're also opposed to vivisection, like animal sacrifices and things like that. So it was around this time, like late 60s, they spread to the United States. They had churches in New York and Boston, New Orleans, Los Angeles, San Francisco. They had a couple churches throughout Europe too, Germany.
Wow.
Yeah. In 1968 in San Francisco, Robert de Grimson met Anton LaVey, founder of the Church of Satan. But LaVey steadfastly refused to recognize the process as a Satanist organization. LaVey was probably like, I'm the official grifter for Satan here, not you, Grimston.
Yeah, it's me. I'm the daddy.
Yeah, I bet they were bitter rivals, don't you think?
Oh, I bet they were. Anton LaVey just in the background playing his Hammond organ really angrily. Just going, fuck the process.
Grimston.
Yeah.
And I bet you LaVey probably had better looking witches anyway. Jane Mansfield.
Well, Susan Atkins from The Family.
Now we're going to get to the connection here between the process and Charles Manson. A lot of rumors circulating about the relationship between Manson and the church.
You don't say.
So in 1968, when they moved to San Francisco, they set up a church at 407 Cole Street, Upper Haight area. Their neighbor at 636 Cole was someone who's going to cause them a lot of service in about a year or so, but none other than Charlie Manson, the head of the Manson family. Yeah, I live right down the street from them. Yeah, I don't know if like he baked him a casserole or something. I don't know if that happened, but this is like, this is around 1968. At that time, Manson wasn't, the head of the family. Were the most like, famous, infamous cult leaders alive after the Tate LaBianca murders. So before that, so he was still kind of like ex-con, drug dealer, petty thief, hippie, who was playing shitty acoustic guitar music in Golden Gate Park. But just a year later, he's going to be, he's going to be one of the most famous cult leaders of them all. But for the process, he definitely affected the future of that organization. Oh. So now there's a book that came out that you're familiar with, written by Ed Sanders, who is the singer-songwriter of the Fugs. He published a book called The Family, A History of Charles Manson and His Cult. There it is. The story of Charles Manson's Dune Buggy Attack Battalion here by Ed Sanders. So Ed Sanders was very upset about how the innocence of the 60s, the hippie movement, had given away to bad drugs, maniacal gurus, violent murder. Is what happened here. And I think the Tate LaBianca killings were the final blow. It started out all you need is love and hippies and tie-dye. It ends here with helter skelter scrawled in a pregnant woman's blood on the on the door.
Yeah.
Death to pigs. So his answer, why did this happen? Sanders claims it was the process. It was the process who's behind all this. Even though there's no definitive evidence that Charlie was ever a member of the Process Church, but there are definitely connections between the two. And I would say that Charlie borrowed heavily from their ideals, their philosophies, I would say.
He did. Yeah.
Sanders claimed the process more or less taught Charlie everything he knew. Both Charlie and the Grimsons were into Scientology at one point. 1968, Charlie sent a family member named Bruce Davis to visit Process headquarters in London. And while there, Davis also had a brief stint with Scientology. Later on, 2 processions visited Manson in jail. Manson contributed to a stream of unconsciousness prattle that he usually does for the Process's death issue. They publish it. He contributed to it. De Grimson wrote of Satan and Christ, the union coming together. That was just another name for Charlie. The Process was, I would say, more than keen on Nazis. They liked the fashion. They liked the symbolism. Well, who had a swastika carved in his forehead?
Who do you think?
Yeah,
Charlie.
Both Charlie and Robert were big on fear. For Charlie, feeling the fear meant total awareness. For Grimson, only after we do that which we are afraid to do can we be saved, face the apocalypse. Processions wore black capes. The family dressed in black when it, committed
Creepy
their murders.
crawly.
Yeah. The Process saw biker gangs like the Hells Angels as the shock troops of the coming Armageddon.
Straight Satan's part of the
Manson
family.
ingratiated himself with several gangs: Straight Satan, Satan's Slaves, Jokers Out of Hell. The in members, like the people who are, in the secret groups, the close-knit groups, and of the Process, refer to themselves as the family. And both Manson's family and the Process preached, apocalypse. It was an apocalyptic belief system. Sanders hated the Processians. He denounced them as hooded snuffleoids, a black cape, black garb, death-worshipping church.
Stop making it sound cool, Ed.
Yeah, I know. He's making it sound kind of cool. He said that the De Grimsons were basically cult leaders, leading a cult. He also kind of had a lot of loose theories about how, they were connected to the Solar Lodge. They were connected to weird ritual mutilations, animal sacrifices, affiliated with a group in the Santa Cruz Mountains called the group the Four Pi. None of this was substantiated, though. I've read excerpts from it.
I own this book. I would say out of, there's so many books about the Manson family out there, loads. I would say this is definitely more on the wackadoo side of things. It's just, he's obviously friends with a lot of the family members too, so it's good for that. They'll say something super interesting, and then he'll be like, remember that time in 1962? You'd be like, no, go back and ask why Bruce Davis was murdering people in London. I want to know more about that.
I think he was
forgetting it.
Writing a sensationalistic novel. I think that's what he's trying to cash in on. The sensationalism of the crimes and trying to make sense of this old hippie trying to make sense of what happened. And where we're at the time. Well, the Process was pissed off. They were not happy about that book whatsoever. They lodged a $1.5 million libel suit against Sanders and the publishers, and a $1.25 million suit against a series of magazine articles that Sanders had written. And they ended up settling out of court with them. So, I mean, there's
Yeah, they had some good lawyers.
They ended up having to publish later editions with disclaimers about the process. Doesn't matter what happens, or the aftermath of it. The damage had been done. Now the process was inextricably associated with Charlie Manson.
Forever.
Yeah, there's nothing you could do about it. It's like now it's connected. There's a nexus here between Manson and the Process Church, and that just completely just sullied their reputation, if they even had one. But the claims are all unfounded. There is no link or anything that was ever officially established between the Process and Manson family, or the Process and David Berkowitz, son of Sam, which I'm going to get to in a minute. However, during the trial, Vincent Bugliosi, the prosecutor of the Manson trial, suggested in his book Helter Skelter that Manson borrowed really heavily from the philosophy of the Process Church.
He even went and interviewed Process members for the trial.
Police investigating the Tate LaBianca murders, which were carried out by the members of the Manson family, they thought there was a connection between Manson and the Process Church. And when they asked Manson if he knew Robert de Grimston, he responded, "You're looking at him. Moore and I are the one and the same." Of course, he said a lot of insane stuff. But you know what? Another theory here that a lot of the Process magazine editors, Malachi McCormick, I love the guy's name's Malachi, he claimed that the Church of Scientology spread the rumor that the Process Church and Manson were connected because Hubbard and a lot of those members claimed that they stole the precepts of Scientology for their own process religion. So
I see. I can understand that.
I can see that. I mean, I think it's it's pretty. The Scientologists are a nefarious group. I wouldn't say this is beyond their area of expertise here. It's interesting too that in urban myth, maybe this was spread by the Scientologists as well. Process Church came to be associated with ritual murders of animals, which is odd because Mary Ann was such a avid enthusiast for animal rights. But rumors spread that a number of Alsatians had been sacrificed around San Francisco, and they claimed this was part of the Process Church, who owned all these Alsatians. But there is no official.
Why would
connection.
they kill their babies?
Exactly.
They're not going to kill their Alsatians.
Well, I think now they're the boogeyman. They're wearing their black capes and they're associated with Manson. There's just this horrible murder of Sharon Tate. And they claim that Charlie Manson was a member of the Process Church. Who knows, how rumors are circulating. But now they're the boogeyman. And then there's this whole Son of Sam connection, which is also even more spurious, which is pretty strange. So they claim that the Process Church morphed into an international cult network of violent Satan worshipers. And that Son of Sam, David Berkowitz, was one himself. So it's there he is. There's David Berkowitz.
Davy B had no time to be joining. He didn't even have the mental capacity to be joining a cult. Davy B likes to drive and not go to work. That was his pleasures and hobbies in life.
You showed me a picture of his apartment. Ugh, just a mattress on the ground. Yeah. August 1977, he was arrested for terrorizing New York City with a series of fatal shootings. He sent a letter to New York Post columnist Steve Dunleavy that said, "When I kill, I really save many lives. You'll understand later. People want my blood, but they don't want to listen to what I have to say. There are other sons out there. God help the world." So that was something where people said he couldn't have committed all these murders, this spree of mass shootings by himself. And there's a book called The Ultimate Evil, written in 1987 by Maury Terry, which is an investigation into America's most dangerous satanic cult, with new evidence linking Charlie Manson and the Son of Sam. And he claims that this is what his connection here is that Michael Carr, the eldest child of Berkowitz's landlord Sam Carr, was a member of the Process Church, and Michael Carr took David Berkowitz to a Process Church meeting in the woods of a nearby park, and it was there that Berkowitz became a member of the Process Church and became ingratiated to their rituals and satanic, services and all that. He claims that the Westchester chapter of the Children, which is a subgroup of the Process Church, committed arson, animal sacrifices, and spree shootings throughout New York to terrorize New York. Just this evil organization, like almost a terroristic organization. And what's odd about it is his proof here is that police artists had sketches of the Son of Sam shooter. None really resembled Berkowitz as much, but they looked a lot like John Carr. And there were sketches of Michael's brother, both Carrs, actually, Michael and John Carr. Actually, the next picture is of John Carr, and he does kind of look like him, which makes it seem like maybe there were three. There's John Carr, and that's one brother, and then there's the other brother as well. Kind of looks like a bit like Phil Lynn from ELO a bit, but yeah. So anyway, he claimed that there was more than one shooter, and maybe it was the three of them. Maybe they were being ordered by the Process Church. Maybe it was a pact with the devil, and they're soldiers of Satan. Maybe that's what the Process was indoctrinating these people with. That notion.
Same people who think these cockamamie theories are the same people who are like, Albo de Salvo couldn't have done it all by himself. It's like, yeah, usually the simplest answer is the correct. This is like way too convoluted, and like, yeah, he kind of looks like that, but come on, that could be Lou Reed in that picture too.
Well, former decorated new NYPD detectives Jim Rothstein and Michael Cordella say that the Process Church enacted the entire campaign. They had ties with biker gangs. They were doing human trafficking, running drugs, and they claimed that one of their trusted underworld contacts said they saw David Berkowitz at a Process gathering.
Oh, yeah, I bet
all of it's unfounded. But regardless of the association with David Berkowitz and Charlie Manson, it didn't bode well for the Process Church, and it all went downhill. 1968, the House of Commons enacted a policy to restrict the growth of Scientology. Process was hit by this because American recruits weren't allowed into England to be in the church. They were still allowed to exist, but they weren't allowed to start actively recruiting anymore. And so de Grimston was sending his flock to England, trying to, get the mercy of the public, saying that, hey, we're not satanic. We're actually here for you. We're helping you. But at this point now, how many cults were there? It's a glut of cults.
Yeah.
It's like people are over cults at this point. And when they saw the processions come in there, their black capes and their weird, 4 peak crosses, people were like, are you guys devil worshippers? And so now they're like, okay, I think we're going to have to take a few steps back from the whole Satan thing. So they lost the black capes, the inverted pentagrams.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
They tried
all the fun stuff.
They took a few steps back from it. They started trying to get into more of a new agey type thing, offering classes on astrology, ESP, tarot, astral traveling. They wore gray leisure suits.
Oh, no,
Yeah. And like blue capes.
Were they going to have Nike trainers now? Oh, I don't like it anymore. I'm out this cult.
But the final nail, this is what ended the Process Church, is when the Omegas split. Robert and Marianne.
Oh, no. After how many years together?
1974, 60, probably about 15 years.
Oh,
so Robert had been plagued by sexual inhibitions throughout his life. He told Marianne that it was time for him to act on his sexual desires. He wanted a nubile young female procession to join their bed.
Oh, it's so typical.
Marianne said, hell no.
Yeah,
she was not down. She completely refused. They also disagreed on the direction of the church itself. Marianne thought they should kind of just drop the whole satanic thing. That phase is over. We're now Christian. Let's just adopt Christianity. Robert's like, no way. This is a satanic church, and that's what we're going to do. I'm not getting rid of that goat's head. We're not going to do that.
I want my girl. I want the goat. And I want my gray leisure suit.
We're going to have threesomes. I'm going to wear a leisure suit. And we're going to be worshiping Satan, okay? Lucifer is key. High-ranking processions decided that the problem was with Robert's vision. That if the process was going to survive, they need to get rid of Satan. So they ousted him. He got booted.
What?
Satan
got booted out the party. What is this, like the Last Supper with Judas all over again?
Yeah. He was betrayed. Marianne renamed the cult the Foundation Church. And it became kind of like an Orthodox Christian church. All references to Satan, Lucifer were completely erased. She was a weird person. She kind of used the name Hecate in her pursuit of power. That was like one of her pseudonyms. But she was definitely, the puppet master here. It was the process was a matriarchal cult. She led it. It was like she was the secretive, charismatic woman behind the scenes operating the whole show.
Pull the strings.
And what's interesting in the
quote Bella.
documentary that came out, process members speak very fondly of her. Not of Robert, but definitely of her. They respected her.
Well, I suppose if she was not going to be around them as often, there was probably more excitement when she did come and interact with them. Whereas, they're going to know Robert every day on a personal level. Like, they're probably, going to smell his farts.
I think it's the mystery,
Yeah, whereas she's a mysterious character coming in with, like, her dogs. And it's like, she's calling herself Hecate today. You'd always be impressed by that.
De Grimston here was defeated. Broken man. Abandoned by Marianne. Abandoned by his cult. And the final end came in 1975. He started to try to, pick up the process and keep his like satanic vision alive. He was wearing his like 4 Ps and his cape, but people just weren't that into it anymore at this point. They're kind of done with him. And so, we're not quite there yet. That was almost.
Oh, sorry.
He said he was in Boston Common. A few dedicated believers, his new paramour. He ended up hooking up with that nubile young procession. He suddenly stopped. It's almost like he had an epiphany and said, "We're going to leave you now, okay?" And he walked with his partner across the common into the land of the gray. No one knows what happened to him. He's still alive. They say the last report said he found work with an American telephone company, but no one knows what happened to him.
It's very like They Live, and he became one of them.
Yeah, he became a gray. Marianne, however, kept the church going for a bit of time. She dropped out of sight. They said in the 70s she had an occult bookshop in Toledo. She was operating under the name Circe at that point.
Oh my God, can this woman get any cooler? I wanted to be my mother.
And then eventually she just kind of disappeared. No one knew what happened. And then she reappeared. This is probably around like the early 90s in Kanab, Utah. And the Process Church became a animal sanctuary. It sort of like completely did a 180 here and transformed into the Best Friends Animal Society. There you go. And you look at the symbol. It's kind of a weird symbol, but who knows? I don't know. It's not satanic.
Makes sense. Can you not see? It's like 2 people holding each other, but it's also a dog's face. Can you not see that? I think it's a very good graphic design.
I think it's pretty cool too.
It's very clever.
It's an animal welfare organization based in Kanab, Utah. And if you think about it, there's multiple German shepherds, Alsatians on the property. The next picture is a girl with a dog here holding it. If you think about it, maybe in the end, the Processians were just devoted dog lovers. They said that they would have therapeutic counseling sessions, not unlike the Scientology-derived techniques that you did with the e-meters and all that, with dogs. I mean, they were modified to be with the dogs, but they love dogs. They were a dog-loving cult.
Is a thing now. Animal therapy is a thing, and having what do they call it when you can have your pets and they come with you and they can
emotional support animals. Yeah,
they've got emotional support animals now, so maybe they were just very ahead of their time in that way.
What's great about this is obviously they're devoted to the welfare of the animals. It's a sanctuary to help the animals. So a lot of these were strays, and then they now can live on this like wilderness in Utah and have good lives. It's
to go to this sanctuary. I want to see if there might be descendants from those Alsatians, because I bet they bred them and had families and gave them all cool names like Hecate.
MacLean died in Utah in 2005, and as far as people know, De Grimston, Robert, still alive. No one really knows.
Wow.
Now, the Process Church, though, has played quite a role in pop culture. I mean, as I mentioned, there's a recent documentary that came out on Netflix. You can go check it out. Directed by Neil Edwards. He interviewed multiple Process members, as well as George Clinton, Genesis P.R., John Waters. A documentary is called Sympathy for the Devil, the true story of the Process Church and the Final Judgment. Here is a picture from the documentary. Is George Clinton from Funkadelic is talking about this album, America Eats Its Young, which has a lot of process imagery in it. Also, Maggot Brain had a lot of process references in the liner notes. I love this album, actually. It's an amazing record. Not quite yet at this one yet, but yeah. So there was Psychic TV, Genesis George. Although she was never a member of the Process Church, she references them. They had the Psychic Bible. Skinny Puppy released a concept album called The Process, based on the group. The hardcore band Integrity, I guess, had a lot of Process Church references in their albums. Their album Humanity is the Devil is a name taken from one of the Process's articles. We're going to end the show with Sabbath Assembly, which is a psychedelic rock band, a cult rock band that restored the Process Church hymns. So we're going to end the show with one of those.
Amazing.
People say there's a theory that Blue Oyster Cult album Secret Treaties, Agents of Fortune, and in particular the band's heavy metal anthem Don't Fear the Reaper, are all Process Church cryptographies that foretold and perhaps even instructed the Son of Sam murders.
I'm going to believe that conspiracy theory. As this is one I will believe, and I'm going to start talking about this in the pub at the weekend.
There's also a few books. William S. Bainbridge in 1978 wrote a book called Satan's Power, a deviant psychotherapy cult about the Process Church. And Timothy Wiley, who was a ex-member, wrote a book called Love, Sex, Fear, and Death, the inside story of the Process Church of the Final Judgment. He is actually in the documentary itself, but... interesting cult. If you show the last picture, this is kind of I like this picture because it sort of shows a cult member surrounded by all the visions and philosophies and the people of the cult.
And the doggies at the bottom.
And the dogs. There they are. There's the German Shepherds at the bottom. It's a great picture. This is total Manson family.
Well, that's the thing. I feel like any of the girls would have crafted this.
I don't think you have to suspend disbelief to think that Manson borrowed heavily from this cult. I mean, I don't think Manson was that creative, like a creative genius. I mean, sure, good-looking guy, charismatic dude, but I think he just ripped this cult off.
I think he ripped off a lot of things, but all of this is so family.
And I think they ripped off the Scientologists and added their own little spin to it, I mean... But at the same time, I could see Manson being into it. They had black capes, swastika-like symbols, orgies with hot chicks, celebrities on their magazine. I mean, he wanted to be a rock star. Drugs. All the successful ingredients of a cult there. So,
was Balfour Place? Did you look it up and see if it's still there?
I didn't actually look it up. I wonder if it's still there. I don't think the coffee shop's still there anymore.
Well, no, obviously not. But
I'd love to bring that back.
There.
That would be great.
Yeah, it would be.
Satan's Cavern. Anyway, people, this is episode 803 here is Sick and Wrong. We got some entertaining phone calls come up next. A couple that I've been holding out on. And I wanted to play. Before we get to that, here's an ad about the Sick and Wrong Patreon page. Hey, Sick and Wrong listeners, if you're not currently a Sick and Wrong patron, you might be missing out on special moments like this one. I think it was an English, Scottish, like United Kingdom thing. Because
it's not Scottish thing.
You guys are too cheap to buy a fucking plunger. That's what I think.
Right. So there are many different types of plungers. This is the issue. And there's only like one or two types of plungers that will actually unclog a toilet, and they're expensive.
How many types of cock hangers are there?
Well, cock hangers, like if you unravel, a hanger, which costs like £2. Yeah, a metal one, which costs like £2. You could use that indefinitely.
My father had one for years though. It was all rusty and had like little pieces of toilet paper, like dingleberries attached to it.
It's got good memories attached to it. You could be like, there's David's cocks and there's Stephanie's cocks.
I used to take it and put it in my sister's hair and she'd scream. For only $5 a month, you can enjoy these special moments. A bonus news story, extra phone calls, and an hour's worth of outtakes every week at patreon.com/sickandwrong. Sign up today, support the show, and keep it sick and wrong. So we got a few phone calls to get to. 323-522-4032 is that number. Keep it under 3 minutes. Tres minutos. Do you like my Spanish?
More than I can say. 3 minutos.
Anyway, the first call is going to be a trip down memory lane for you, Kate Rambo.
Pourquoi?
Drunk Dad styling in.
Well, hello there, Sick and Wrong. This is Mr. Rambo calling.
Mr. Rambo's calling.
Jesus.
Yeah, from beyond the grave.
It must be about like
Away
10
from-
years.
Yeah, it's got to be.
London, England. Catherine, my love, your mum and I are very worried about you. You left the flat this morning without remembering to take your vagina medicine.
Kate, how could you do that?
How could I worry my mum and dad like that
God.
so badly?
I know, but how are you going to control the odor?
I don't know.
Without,
Like, I
without
need
your
my
pills.
medicine.
Did drunk dad, Mr. Rambo, call you Catherine?
Well, no, because I'm not Catherine. I am William Shakespeare's Kate. No
it's
middle
not
name.
short for like KT or Catherine.
No,
or
I'm just William Shakespeare's Kate.
Kate-alicious.
He invented my name, Kate-alicious. Yeah, William Shakespeare also invented the name Kate-alicious.
You left it on the counter in the loo.
It's a
Don't
loo.
worry, Catherine. Your mum has put your vagina medicine into the post. You shall be relieving it shortly.
Oh, so I guess she's posting it to you. So no worries there,
to wherever
Catherine.
I am. It'll be okay. Thanks, Dad.
Catherine, we worry about you. Don't be a slag like your gran. Use your vagina medicine. Toodaloo, my dear. Talk to you later.
Ah, he's so thoughtful, drunk dad.
Do you say toodaloo in America?
Oh, yeah, it's
Yeah.
very common.
I've not said toodaloo. I'm gonna start saying it now. Like, not even like ironically. I'm just gonna be like toodaloo.
The origins of British, it's a British term, right? A British.
Of course it is. Can you go anywhere else and say toodle fucking oo? Of course it's
Hiya.
British. Hiya, toodaloo.
Toodaloo. Wow. Well, that was really nice. A trip down memory lane.
I
Get to
know. Thank you,
hear
Dad, for
from
my
your
vagina medicine. Sluttery, slatternly, sluggishness, it all runs in the family, probably from like my great grandmother. We've all inherited the vagina
So
from her
was
that we need
grandma
medicine
a
for.
slag?
Well, technically, aren't all our grandmas slags? Because they're all like shagging their husbands with no protection and getting pregnant. It's a pretty slaggish move, if you ask me, when you could just be swallowing that semen.
But
So-
okay, I'm just looking through the matriarchal line of the Rambo women. Who had the most abortions?
Me.
Do you guys brag about that when you had family reunions?
Oh,
How many
yeah,
of you
every-
had? I've had 4. You've had 3. Solve that. Like, is that common?
Nothing compared to my Auntie Sylvia, who's probably only had sex once, but yet somehow has created the greatest man known to mankind. Ooh, that's getting some bitchy.
Wait,
if any
who?
of my
Well, your aunt created the greatest man known to mankind.
if you ask her, she has. If you ask her, there's definitely
okay.
some like motherly
This is your
love.
cousin.
Yes, one of my cousins. I have many. Many.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So do you have like some kind of recognition, like a medal or a certificate for having the most abortions in the family?
Not at the minute. I still have probably some other family members to beat, but I'm working hard at it. Working hard.
Maybe one day I'll give you like a sick and wrong, like bronzed fetus award or something.
That'd be no.
Like a
I want
fetus
the
with a knife
little.
in it.
What I'll do is the next time I have an abortion, okay, we'll just do a little cast iron resin polymer thing of the little fetus's feet, and that's what you can make it with.
Ah, that's
Okay.
brilliant. You can even make
That's a nice little
keychain 'cause they're
memento
tiny.
before.
Make a
Yeah,
little
before it gets
keychain.
chucked in the incinerator, I can be like, that was like abortion number 42. Bye-bye.
Well, thank you, drunk dad. It was good hearing from you.
Yes,
This
a
next
blessing.
call
Was a
next
blessing.
call is from Chris Siege over in Victoria, Ireland, Canada. I don't know why they sound like that. They don't.
Greetings, D and Kate. Christopher Siege here. Just wanted to call in and talk a little bit about something that happened right across the street from my work this morning. So early this morning at about 7 a.m., I was doing my daily, 1 hour stand at the door, enforcing the mask policy / being unpaid muscle.
Yeah, doesn't he work at like a grocery store or something?
He does, but can I just also say I loved his radio voice at the start. Greetings. He
No, he's
sounded
got
very
a-
like
he's
a
got a-
1950s.
He's got a great
Yeah, it was
radio
great.
voice anyway. Actually, I
Yeah.
should get him to do more promos for us because he was on. Remember, he subbed the show with Sick and Wrong like a year ago or so.
He did.
But yeah,
Yeah.
he a great radio voice. Does a podcast himself, that Beast Wars podcast.
He's a busy man.
And so I'm just standing there for however long, like pondering all of the choices and mistakes that I've made that have led my life to this moment. Working at a grocery store, standing at a door. But I hear.
You know what I would do if I was him? I would get like a stick or something, or like actually, you know what? A laser pointer. So when someone came in without a mask, I'd be like psh, in your face, like you sir, with a laser pointer.
Yes, that's very pedantic. It's something I could see you doing.
I could
Chris
do
is
that.
a bit
It's
too
like,
good.
you, sir,
I
where's
think a
your
stick would
face
be
diaper?
better.
Yeah,
I
but a
think
stick they could say is assault.
Oh yeah, as
If
soon
you're
as you touch
smacking,
them.
poking, yeah, as soon as you touch them. So I think
Yeah.
that's if you had a laser pointer or like a squirt
Plus,
gun or something.
The Canadians are too polite to do anything like this, other
Yeah, I
than
don't
be
think they
very,
would.
very passive aggressive.
Yeah, they'd probably throw like a poutine fry at them or something.
Oh, I
Also
want some
assault in
poutine.
Canada.
Like junkie yell out, "Hey! Hey! Hey!" from across the street. So I look over, and directly across from the front entrance of my workplace was some like street person who had clearly like slept there last night because he had like blankets and a bunch of garbage and shit around him. And there were these two other like crackheads like trying to wake him up. One was this chick and one was this dude. So the chick was like screaming at this guy, like trying to wake him up. And the dude was completely unresponsive. And the crackhead guy was like pushing on him, like trying to wake him up, and like dude completely unresponsive. Guy looked dead, honestly. from
This is so tragic. It's like it's like his war buddy or something. He's like, come on, get up. And
This is such a good way to start the day, though, if you're at work. 'Cause
Hey,
I don't have excitements like this in my work, and I work a blue-collar job just like Siege.
Yeah, but it's interesting. At least it's something out of the ordinary.
I'd be
you know?
loving it.
That's kind of what I thought when like COVID happened. I was like a little excited because I'm like, wow, it's something different than the humdrums of my daily existence, you know?
angle. And so they keep yelling at him and like shaking him, and nothing's happening. And the chick fucks off. And for a brief moment, I start to wonder, I'm like, huh, that guy actually looks kind of dead. Should I should I call an ambulance or something? Like, he probably OD'd. And
I'd just laser point his eyes to see if there's
As
any
I say,
movement.
this is when you really go and get a stick.
Yeah,
and
now you actually could
poke
use a
the
stick.
body with a stick.
I pondered that for a minute and thought, you know what? Nah.
Yeah.
But then something like absolutely amazing happens. So the crackhead dude keeps trying to like shake this guy awake, and he's still like not responding at all, not moving. He stands up and fucking kicks the guy, and the guy still doesn't move. So the crackhead like leans down over to the dude's bag and starts sifting through his bag and like pulls out like some money, like a 20 and a couple of 5s, and pockets them. And then he like tries to shake the guy awake again, and he still doesn't respond. So the crackhead like goes back to the guy's bag and pulls out a pack of cigarettes, and then he goes to like try and
This is like the guy's life savings, but he doesn't need him anymore, you know?
Well, he's not going to need them where he's going.
That's like a crackhead's 401k plan right there.
He would have wanted him to have them.
Yeah.
him awake again, and the guy like still doesn't move. And so he goes back into the dude's bag and like steals a couple of lighters and like grabs a couple of other things. And I'm watching this just like trying to contain my fucking laughter here. It's like something out of like a mean-spirited comedy. Somebody a much better human being than I did end up phoning 911, and an ambulance came, and yeah, you know, guy ended up living. Whatever.
Oh, shit.
Anyway, keep it sick, keep it wrong. Bye-bye.
So wait, the crackhead
shit.
wasn't even dead.
Your
The
mate's
dude just
robbing
rifled
you.
through all his belongings, stole his 401k crackhead plan.
That's
and
what you
that's
do,
it.
though, isn't it? I mean, come on, it's like junkie rules, it's street rules. You're gonna get rolled, aren't you?
Well, you have to be opportunistic if you live on the streets.
Yeah,
This
I mean,
is
that's
an
like a
opportunity.
fortune.
Yeah, I mean,
I've
this
never
is like
bought crack, but I imagine you can get at least one crack rock.
oh, for
for
$20 bucks. I think you can
$25.
get like 4 crack
10?
rocks. You just like
You can
$5 or
get
$10. Yeah, probably.
Oh, that's-
You get a couple. Yeah,
And he got a packet of cigarettes as well, so he doesn't have to spend
Yeah, a
money on
couple
cigarettes
lighters.
that way. Yeah, they're
probably
good
got a
for
nice
him.
pair of gloves. You know, with the
What
fingers
I
cut
would have
off.
done if I was Siege, I would have been like, if you know, you always have favorite other colleagues that you work with, don't you? I would have just gone and found like one of my favorite colleagues and been like, hey, come and watch this. Come and watch this with me. And just made them stand and watch it with me.
But would you have gone over there to try to like
No.
mouth to mouth or CPR?
I would have gone over there with a stick. I wouldn't have even gone over there with a stick because I've been like, shit, if he wakes up and like spits in my direction, that's COVID.
I think COVID's the least of your worries at that point.
I also wouldn't have rang an ambulance either. I'd have just been like, I want to see where this plays out. I'm on front door till 1. Okay, guys.
Yeah, I kind of would have wanted to see what was going on too, you know?
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
Siege actually put a really funny picture in the Discord recently as well, where it was like trainers and pants, and I think someone's top on top of like a dumpster, and it just looked like the guy had disappeared into the ether. I was like, there must be a homeless problem, to put it bluntly, in Victoria at the minute.
Wait, I don't get it. Trainers and pants were just like...
It was like all like a hobo's like entire outfit, like just on top.
Where was
of,
the
like,
hobo?
Exactly, D. Where was the hobo?
Is it like a scarecrow?
Where's he gone? Like, no, they were
like
just
scaring
like, they
other
were on
crackheads
top.
away from his stuff?
Maybe they didn't want to take his stuff because they were like, that guy's a ghost now and that stuff is haunted. But it was totally like he had just like evaporated. He'd smoked so much crack.
Maybe they
that he
spontaneously
evaporated.
combust or something, you know?
He iced himself.
I don't blame Christopher Siege at all. I don't blame him at all. I think I would have done the same thing. That's entertainment. That's like an hour of your, work that you're actually like, oh, this is kind of cool. It's like I actually get to watch something interesting.
And when you see shit like that as well, you talk about it for like weeks after, and you just it puts a pep in your step. It does.
It is kind of funny when you see bums. I remember the first time I ever went to New York City. This is like 1993 when Lower East Side was pretty sketchy. This one bum was like passed out on the ground, and he had like a shopping cart just full of cans. And in New York, it's like, was that 5 cents a can or something? Michigan's like 10 cents a can. Anyway,
wow.
A bum came over and was just like, I sleep, I'm going to go take this shopping cart. And he starts taking the shopping cart. And the one guy like gets up and was just like, what the fuck you doing, motherfucker? And he like runs after him, and they start like kind of fighting. And then the one guy like picks up like a bar off the ground, like an iron, like a wrought iron kind of rebar or something, and just like swings at him. And the other guy picks up another like a piece of rebar off the ground, and it became like a full-on sword fight, like bam, bam, and the clinging over a shopping cart full of cans. Instead of anyone stopping it or calling the police or everything, there's no phones to videotape it at that time, but everyone was standing there just like, yeah, get him. Like, and I swear there was someone betting on it. And we were just kind of standing there watching, and like at first everyone's like kind of laughing. It was funny until one guy, he hit him, and then he just pummeled his face in with the thing, and then everyone's like, oh, I'm gonna get out of here.
Yeah, now it's murder.
Now it's
Bye.
murder. I think I'm gonna go on with my day. That was fun.
This is what I've always thought about. If I was ever like a bum, I was homeless once, but if I was ever a bum in like New York or somewhere, why don't they go south for the winter?
I don't know, maybe make more money in New York. Also, like San Francisco, I used to wonder that too. It's like, why are they here? It's cold and it's wet. It's because you get free methadone, you get free food. It's like maybe in those other cities in Florida or something, they're not as amenable to the homeless.
I bet in Miami they don't give a shit. I bet you can go like I would winter in Miami and then just like flock back up like the birds and then just flock back up to New York.
I would get a bindle and I would ride the train cars. That's what I would do. And then I'd write songs in a Tom Waits type voice, and who knows what would happen with my career.
Okay, Merle Haggard. Look to
All
him
right,
and no one
you.
else.
Thank you, Christopher Siege. We have one more call here, and this is from the Swede.
Oh, wow.
Oh, hello, Sick and Wrong. This is Johnny from Stockholm, Sweden. Another Swede. I'm not affiliated with that other Swede, but I have a story about Thailand too. I went to a bar in Copenhagen. No, where was it? In Bangkok. Anyway.
He says that Bangkok.
The other Swede. This is Swede too. Do you think they would fight with each other with?
Wait,
no,
there's 2
Swede...
Swedes? This sounds like the same Swede. This is a different Swede?
No, this is as if this is a different Swede. Can you not
Shit.
tell?
I don't know. The Swedes kind of sound the same.
Oh,
With their
that's
English voices.
just so
When
racist.
they're speaking English, I'm sure, and they're speaking Swedish, they sound different.
They have different voices. This isn't the Swede. This is a Swede 2. I wonder which part
another
of Sweden,
Swede.
which part of Sweden Swede 2 is from.
I imagine it looks a lot like where Swede 1's from.
Sweden.
A girl, she asked me if I wanted to have some fun, some sexy fun. I said, yeah, sure. So we went to her house.
Are you sure this is the Swede 2?
This is not. This is the Swede 2. This is like Darth Maul Swede.
Are you
This is
sure
a different Swede. I'm
this is
100%
not
sure.
Jean-Claude Van
Swede.
Damme? It sounds like Van Damme to me.
Jean-Claude Van Damme is not Swedish. I thought he was Austrian.
I know, but
no, he's French. He's Belgium. He's from Belgium.
But
Sorry, he's
his
not French.
voice, his speaking voice, sounds like Van Damme to me.
Do you want to call
almost
this
think-
guy?
I almost think this might be Jean-Claude.
Do you want to call him Jean-Claude Van Swede?
That would work, but he sounds like Jean-Claude.
Close by with just a small room, really. And she, took my pants and trousers off, everything, and she was sitting on a bed, and she went on her knees, and she looked at my cock, and she looked at me, and she said,
Cock.
I do this for my family.
Was his cock malformed? Like, why? I mean, she's obviously seen a lot of cocks, or maybe it was her first time. She's a new, like a neophyte prostitute or something.
I don't think any phrase can make a man harder than I do this for my family.
Speak for yourself. The tears are like Viagra for me.
And I just wasn't so turned on, but she said that, she went to put her mouth on my cock and looked again and said, I do this for my family. And I said, no, please stop. Just use your hand, make me finish with your hand, because
I would definitely say you got to stop talking. If this is going to end, if we're going to be able to complete this interaction, you got to stop talking, because that would kill it for me. I got to say, Jean-Claude's Asian impression is dead on.
I would like to know how Marshall and Tony would have handled this situation.
I think Marshall Island Tony would have been hard as a rock at the tears. That would have been like, that's arousing.
This is Marshall and Tony's dream
this is
scenario.
like an erotic scenario.
Yeah. Finally, a girl that isn't a slag.
Imagine the pain. So I just give her some extra money, and I go to bed, and I feel like shit. Anyway, keep it sick and wrong fun. Cheers. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the way you ended that. Cheers. Yeah.
I love Swede too. I want more more stories from abroad from both Swedes.
I want to know, is Swede 2, were you in Bangkok alone? Like, were you by yourself, like a sex tourist?
You never go to Bangkok by yourself, do you?
You do when you're like a creepy older European.
What makes you think that Jean-Claude Van Swede is older?
Well, I don't
Be
know,
our
but I'm
age.
just saying, he's probably with his friends, and they probably all got hookers. But what I'm saying is, like, there comes a point when you're like over 40 and you go to Bangkok by yourself.
Oh, we all know what you're doing there.
Yeah, like
You're not doing it for your family.
a couple friends of mine in San Francisco, I'm not going to mention any names, used to go every year by themselves. And he was saying that one of his favorite things about getting a prostitute in Bangkok is so you'd have sex, but afterwards she would cut your toenails, she'd cut your fingernails, she would like warm compress everything.
Look after you.
Yeah, so it's
I
like
think-
getting a
didn't
manicure and a
Marshall-
pedi.
Marshall and Tony say that they look after you. I'm sure he's definitely talked about like soap jobs and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I think they do that, and so it's like he's like, yeah, it's way better than the U.S. where they just don't give a shit.
You know what Sweet 2 should have done? He should have said, "Show me the picture."
The picture of what?
Of their family.
Oh,
and
of the family?
Then he should have
Then
just
he
gone
would have
rock,
came. Yeah.
rock fucking hard.
So staring at the picture of her family, and then that's a very morbid.
See, I don't think he's got
a very
he's
morbid
Swedish.
picture there.
The Swedes
Kate
know how
Rambo.
to look after their kioks, so I've got no worry there. I just, I don't know. She was just trying to get out of a job.
I mean, I don't know. I think if I was in that situation, which I wouldn't be, but if I was, I'd have been like, "Here's some money. I have to go. I have to go." This is like, you ruined it. You blew it, or you didn't blow it. You ruined it. Here's a $20. Anyway, people call Sick and Wrong hotline 323-522-4032 if you want to support the show and you want an extra show, because that's kind of how we're doing it now. We get we get the regular Sick and Wrong show, and then you get a whole extra show on the Patreon. And you sign up for patreon.com/sickandwrong, $5 a month, news stories, phone calls, outtakes. It's a whole extra show. And then on top of that, for a couple bucks more, $5 more, you get the Sick and Wrong news segment. This week, we covered a news story on a woman who lactated from her underarm. Yeah, I'm amazed that Kate Rambo said she would drink the milk. I don't know why. I just kind of skipped by it because I don't even want to know. Anyway,
I was doing it for my family.
And then we also do the bonus Sick and Wrong mini-sode called Sick and Wrong Overkill. And this week it's Manson Month. This month is Manson Month. And this week, Kate covered the Mendocino Witches.
Yeah, fun times.
Yeah, so it's going to be a Manson-themed month and the anniversary of the Manson murders.
I'm
so check it out.
To it.
Patreon.com/sickandwrong. Support the show. We really do appreciate it. It keeps us going. Also, we got a TeePublic store if you want to get some merch. sickandwrongpodcast.com/shop. Click on the picture of the Pope. Finally, here's Sick and Wrong Song of the Week. So I mentioned before there's a band called Sabbath Assembly, which was an occult rock band formed around like 2010. With only two people in it. Jex Thoff, who I actually really admire her. Some in the occult. She's kind of like an occult rock artist. Been in a bunch of bands. I think she's in a solo band called Jex Thoff. But this is like a side project she did with a guy named David Christian. But what they wanted to do was they wanted to play the hymns of the Process Church of the Final Judgment. So they actually got the real, so this is an actual hymn of the Process Church. It's called We Give Our Lives, and it's from their debut LP, Restored to One, which came out in 2010. All the divine forces are mentioned in this one song. Pretty cool. Their follow-up record, though, which I checked it out today too, because I've heard of them. I have Jex Thoff's like solo stuff, and it's great. But I actually never had anything but Sabbath Assembly. But I was listening to this one with the hymns. It's kind of cool. But the second one is called Ye Are the Gods. And it's a full-on, like, recreation of a process mass and sermon and like a service. It's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't imagine listening. It's something that'd be cool to have. Couldn't imagine listening to it all that much. But
I imagine it was also something better when there's like 30 of you in that room and you're all kind of high.
Yeah,
as well.
It's probably a little more palatable at that point. Anyway, this song, though, We Give Our Lives, is kind of cool, very catchy. So we're going to end the show here with that, We Give Our Lives by Sabbath Assembly. People, thanks for listening. We'll be back next week with episode 804. Till then, take it sleazy.
We give our lives, we give our love, and praise it to the stars above. We feel your power, your burning fire, you raise our spirits ever higher. The Lord Jehovah, power and will, faith and courage, now and still, with strength and truth. our souls inspire with gift of love, our new desire to share with all the unity. The fire of love brings purity. Salvation, death of the old, birth of the new, reborn to give the spark of truth, to show the chosen eternal youth. We give our lives, we give our love, and praise it to the stars above. Feel your power, your burning fire. We raise our spirits ever high. We give our lives, and praise it to the stars above. Feel your power, your burning fire. We raise our spirits ever high. We raise our spirits
Ladies, are you dying to grab that new Twilight poster? Can't wait to have your hands on that funky new purse you saw on Sex and the City? Well, I have one question for you. Are you fucking kidding me? It's still their December, sweetheart. So if you want to stuff yourself like a Thanksgiving turkey, head over to adamandeve.com and go crazy. Personally, I enjoy the bottoms-up finger rammer, and when I desire some backdoor action, I use the deep anchor probe. And if you think the fun stops there, you need a big dong up your juicy little cunt. Because if you enter diddle upon checkout, you will receive 3 free adult DVDs, 50% off almost any item, and a gift so sensual I can't even mention it on this podcast. But I can certainly feel it. And let me tell you, honey, dildos are one of those gifts that keeps